Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. This is now a report. I'm absolutely exhausted, and I've been just abused non-stop, really brutally, ever since I went to the embassy. I'm now in Germany again, and I was assaulted non-stop on the way. Because this is evidence, and because this is evidence of severe, serious crimes being committed, and of severe abuse and crimes against humanity, I'm going to make this under oath. I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So what happened is that today I packed my things and I went back to Germany to be with my family over Christmas. I was assaulted insanely last night. This is after, again, going to the embassy and begging for help. As a German national, begging for help. I went in April. I asked the embassy to help me have this resolved in April because the Swiss police refuses to do anything against Secret Service crimes. They refuse to even look. Secret Service crimes are Europe-wide condoned. The Secret Services maim and murder whoever they like. They have unilaterally cancelled citizens' human rights. And they maim and murder. And they pretend that everybody else is stupid. But essentially the situation we have is that the intelligence agencies are running amok. Again. I'm bored of saying it. But there is no decade in the 20th century when the intelligence agencies were not running amok. So this is not news. There was not a single decade since records exist that the intelligence agencies were not working on mind control technologies, on maiming people, on poisoning them, on harming them, on just wrecking lives, basically. These are degenerate people. And these government organizations just give literally the dregs of society and degenerate, damaged people an opportunity to live out their utter worthless lives. And that's what we're having now. And basically I was insanely assaulted at home. My head was shot into non-stop. Then I had a bit of relief until I went down and I took a bus, and I just left my home, and I was perfectly fine walking to the bus stop. Then I climbed into the bus and I had my head cooked again. And I had this already when I came back from the High Court. I was brutally shot in the face when I climbed onto my local bus. So these are guns and emitters placed inside bags. And it's obvious that you can do that because the canvas, doesn't allow light to pass through, but microwaves go through without problems. And I have already been shot in the face several times and overtly demonstratively stalked on my local transport. But today they cooked my head. They cooked my head. And then I was again fine in the airport. And then inside the plane they cooked my head again. And what they do, and the reason why they can do it, is because, do you remember the air marshals and how after all the staged terrorist attacks that were, as we now know, staged by the intelligence agencies, they requested more and more personnel on the air, on the planes? Well, what I have seen, based on the stalking and the little groupings of junior, grunt teenage spies run by senior handlers, is that every single aeroplane and every single train has got hordes of these people. They don't do anything. The intelligence agencies do not do anything. Forget that idea. They do not do anything. But they are now assaulting people who are on these assault lists. And I have seen that over and over. I was already insanely attacked so that it bruised me up when I went to a victim meeting in Rotterdam at the beginning of the year. And there I knew I was brutally shot into the leg so that it hurt incredibly. And then, as I was sitting in my seat and I was just shot into and I had, intense pain in my leg, suddenly, a row further down, a young woman just leaned forward and just grinned at me sarcastically. You wouldn't do that normally. You would not, just sitting in a train seat, just lean forward and grin at somebody a row back or 2 rows back. You just would not do that. And next to me were 2 senior handlers who, when this woman did that, the woman next to me, she just had a little micro expression of a grin on her face. Because they are so thick, these people, this amuses them, these little games. But meanwhile, they are brutally taking apart the life of those people in your society who are trying to make things work. Do you understand? And they are using these air marshals and these little hordes of vacuous-headed idiots to just microwave people to death on these Zersetzungs programs. I was microwaved on trains, on public transport, and in airplanes. They love it because you're stuck in your seat. And I had my head cooked. I don't know how they do that. Originally I thought, actually, what if the overhead lockers are not actually metal, but just plastic, just hard case plastic, for the weight. Because then you can just put an overhead locker, in a bag into the overhead locker, and just irradiate down on top of someone's head. But today, it was the top of my skull in the plane that was shot into. And when a young woman sat next down, and that's another setup that I watched, when I fly on my own, I basically have these incredibly young people sit next to me and an older person behind. That's the pattern. So usually 2 young people next to me, 1 young person behind me, and an older person. And that to me is like the, 3 or 4 young, trainee assault morons and the senior handler setup. And I've seen that over and over and over. And the nonsense these people are doing is absolutely unbelievable. It was at the beginning of the year when I first started being attacked. And then they burned my head so hard, my scalp was essentially burning. They microwaved me so hard, my scalp was burning. Over and over and over in my home. And then when I flew to Germany and I was at Zurich airport, what they did, and I'm not making this up, is I suddenly spotted a group of young women with a senior guy standing by and kind of watching them, and they regularly threw glances at him. And one of these women, she had, how to describe it, like a fake, like a skull cap or something like actors would put on to pretend to have a bald head. And when I looked at it, you can spot these things because suddenly her head was much bigger than it naturally would be because it had to accommodate her hair and an extra layer. But otherwise it looks fairly genuine, as these things do, right? But her head was incredibly large, and it was like totally bald, and then just individual hairs. It looked horrific. And this is what her head looked like. But at the same time her face had perfect makeup. And she was just giggling and really, very high, how to put it, on a high pitch. And she kept glancing over to me, trying to get close to me. And on the bus to the actual airplane, she made sure that she stood next to me and showed me her, bald, in inverted commas, head, which actually was just an actor's, cap. And then the entire group is giggling and glancing over to me. Over and over. And meanwhile, in the preceding, weeks, my scalp has been burned by the degenerates who are firing into my home. So this network is connected. This is the intelligence agency's assault morons network. And what they do, so that you know, is that they travel around on trains, they travel around on planes doing nothing. Because we didn't have any actual genuine terrorist attacks. They were all staged by them. You can read it up. We did not have anything like that. So there is nothing on earth to do for them on the plane. And what they do is that they amuse themselves with turning on the people who are on these surveillance lists by accident, because some corrupt old fart or an utter moron put us there. This is the reality of our intelligence agencies and our so-called law enforcement. They are morons. They always, have been rather challenged intellectually, but now we have reached rock bottom. And what these people have now been given by corrupt people in the intelligence agencies and so-called law enforcement is these microwave emitters, and they are going around mutilating people. They are mutilating people on our airplanes and on our trains. Take that in. I am not the only person who says that. You can talk to Peter Mooring, who runs the Stop Egg charity. He personally to me confirmed that yes, people get attacked on airplanes. I just talked to a lady in the US and she confirmed yes, she is also attacked on airplanes. So being attacked on airplanes by our own security services and being painfully microwaved is normal. Do you understand? And then I'm now in Germany, so this is squarely German intelligence and the German police corruption. And then when I landed, I was picked up by my family, and on the drive home my head was again cooked. And what they do is this tailgating with cars is just part of any surveillance network. And it's decentralized, so it's not always the same car that's going to tailgate you, that is obvious. But I had my head microwaved all the way from the airport, all the way. And in the end, I had relief when we turned into our street. That is the reality of our intelligence agencies today. They maim women. And now I am exhausted. I have been physically abused for the entire year. And the people who have built up this intelligence network and the people who run it and the old farts who basically jeeringly appear and just get one off watching, literally they mutilate their own next generation. They just mutilate them to death, the best ones, the ones that worked hardest and really want to improve the economy and start new businesses. But because they are women and because they're foreigners, I'm a German citizen, but for them I'm just an Ausländer, clearly. So we now have got a situation where I am being mutilated to death. The last couple of days, when I went to the embassy on Friday, desperately calling the emergency helpline and no one replied. And had it not been for Michael Kanzler, I would not have spoken to a single soul. But when I returned over the last couple of nights, my head was cooked so hard. I've got pins and needles now permanently in my hand. This means permanent brain damage in my head that I received overnight in my own home. You have to realize this is the blueprint for all of you. Do you understand? If you don't get on my case, and if you do not write to the German ambassador, Dr. Otto Lampe, and you do not write to Alex Younger at MI6, Andrew Parker at MI5, Dr. Bruno Karl at the BND, this stuff is not going to stop because they are having far too much fun. Do you understand what it takes to make these degenerate psychopaths stop? We have a system that was also, and it's not just these people currently in office who are guilty. Those also guilty of crimes against humanity are their predecessors. Because John Sawers, John Scarlett, Richard Dearlove, they all operated this system. They are all guilty of crimes against humanity. And the same is also true of all the Germans, heads of intelligence. They are guilty of crimes against humanity. And this is not surprising. because the only thing the intelligence agencies have ever been, clearly with evidence shown to do is to commit crimes against humanity. But this is now the situation that for the last 11 months, because of the whims of some geriatric degenerates in the intelligence agencies, my life has been systematically taken apart. Whilst you are celebrating Christmas, I have had my brain damaged, my kidney is aching from the previous damage, and my hip is aching painfully. And I have been microwaved all the way for an hour and a half inside the flight. I have been microwaved for another hour inside the car. And I've been microwaved also for half an hour intensely inside the bus already today. And this is on top of being microwaved at home non-stop and as I keep showing you the documents, the videos, I keep having intense beams shot into my body, full whack. The last video I updated at 1 minute 13 seconds, you can see with your own eyes, you can see how this is being shot into me as I'm sitting in my own home. And what else you can also see is the comments that I get, most of them from intelligence agents. You can see what they are trying to push, that it's due to aliens, that all we need to do is change our dietary habits, or put little stones or little magnets down somewhere. I'm sorry, when you're being shot into with military microwave technology, none of these makes a difference. Otherwise, the army would consist of praying vegans with little magnets running around. But it does not. They have steel as thick as 2 fingers around the equipment. And this is essentially it, right? We have our own intelligence agencies running amok, and these degenerates don't know Christmas or compassion or time to stop. They are just firing. They set a script running, another video that you can see entitled Hack Attack and Assaults Every 60 Seconds. And as the title says, you can see how a script is firing into me every 60 seconds inside my home. And meanwhile, the German ambassador doesn't give a shit. He literally cannot be bothered because our human lives are worth nothing to them. If I had lost my passport, I was informed by Miss Richter, I can call the helpline and then they will point me to the opening hours and explain to me how I can get a new passport. So if I lose my passport, I can call the embassy helpline. If I'm being maimed and mutilated to death as a German citizen in Switzerland, amongst others by German intelligence, I can't go to the embassy. And, as I was told, that's not an emergency. And meanwhile, I had my hip damaged. And I had my head damaged so that I've got permanently pins and needles in my hand. Because German intelligence, in association with British and Swiss intelligence, put down microwave technology and they're testing how many shots they need to fire into me to demolish my organs. Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. And a Happy New Year.